Ladies and mostly gentlemen, today we're going to talk about weapons. Yes, weapons. Something that hasn't really been spoken about in a while without the word artifact in front of it. Because if you didn't know, in Battle for Azeroth, Blizzard are not bringing forward the artifact weapon system from Legion, and they're going back to their roots by bringing back regular weapon drops. For me personally, as much as I like the artifact weapon system, nothing beats regular drops and replacing gear, which is why I get sad when leveling up with heirlooms. So with the new expansion comes a new game mode known as Warfront. This is a large-scale PvE, not PvP battle system, which has RTS roots, etc, etc, etc. You probably know all of this by now. So on the channel over the last week, I've been showing off the Warfront armor, but today we're going to be showing off a few of the weapons that you'll be able to acquire through this new PvE system. As of the latest Alpha build, they're currently not in the game, so I won't be going over sources or stats, just purely checking out the models. This will also likely be a part 1, as not all of the weapon models are currently in. So in this video we'll be covering these items: the bow, dagger, gun, 2 one-handed maces, 2-handed mace, offhand, polearm, 2 shields, staff, one-handed sword, 2-handed sword, and the wand. It's been a long while since Blizzard have made unique weapons for each faction, so this is going to be good. And spoilers, they're pretty damn amazing so far. So without further ado, let's crack on and take a look at these weapon models in-game. Okay, so let's start by checking out the bow. So much like most of the items on today's list, this comes in 3 colours. In my opinion, the best and most alliance has to be the gold and blue one. That goes for pretty much the rest of the items as well. This bow is really cool though. With a massive spike on the front and a giant lion head, it just drips alliance pride. Covered in ribbon and metal, has a clean look to it, and on some characters it's actually pretty big as well. Although it does look a little low res when in the model viewer, but that can always be improved. Overall, a really cool bow, and I can't wait to see some cool transmog sets to go along with it. Continuing the trend of range weapons, let's now talk about the Alliance gun. Now this gun is the gift that just keeps on giving, with some incredible design choices that really make it stand out. So starting off at the top of the gun, it features a little griffin head with wings on each of the side of the gun, and sharp pointy ears to act like a sight. You can see that this gun is made of partly wood and partly metal, and it blends perfectly in the center of the gun. The back of the gun has a piece of wood, well, I assume it's wood, hanging down and attached by a chain. An interesting design choice, but it's sort of similar to something you'd actually see on a Horde gun, but it does add that extra level onto the gun, as it wouldn't look as cool without it really. Overall, a really cool looking gun for the Alliance, and it'll be interesting to see whether most people opt in for the gun or the bow, as both ranged weapons currently look really great. Next up, we're going to talk about the dagger. Once again, this has 3 colour variants which match perfectly with the gun and bow. The dagger is very regal and features a short blade with a design on the blade itself. No idea if it means anything, but it looks cool nonetheless. The hilt is long and it features a glowing crystal on the back end of it. There's also a glowing gem at the end of the hilt towards the blade in the middle of this cool looking wing design. Overall, a nice little dagger for all your rogue needs, and it'll look pretty nice alongside the Alliance leather set as well, as the colours match perfectly. Next, let's talk about the one-handed maces. So I said at the start, there are actually 2 unique models for the one-handed maces. So here's the first one. This comes in 3 colours of course, and the design really doesn't come out until you get really up close to it. So each side of the mace has these Alliance griffin heads with sharp beaks, so that would really hurt if you got caught around the face with it. On top of those is a blue gem which matches a smaller blue gem on the bottom of the mace. The handle features a similar design to the dagger, and the colour scheme matches really well with the other weapons in the video. The next one-handed mace is this one. This one differs quite a bit from the previous design. The centre of the mace features this cool looking Alliance lion with a gem on its forehead. The gem is blue on the gold and not really prominent on the bronze, and it's green on the pink mace. Yep, the pink one. The pink and green design is really interesting, and there are only a few select weapons which actually use this colour scheme, but the others use it slightly more subtle than this. Not to say that it's a bad choice, I just think it's a lot different from the other ones. Next up is the 2-handed mace. Now there's only one of these and it looks like this. So compared to the second one-handed mace I showed, it kind of resembles a larger version of that. The lion head is much larger now and there's a more detailed gem on the forehead. I love the attention to detail on this mace though. Throughout most of the metal on it, it has sort of a rusty look to give it a vibe that it's been used previously. Or it could be blood. That's for you to decide. The colour on the gold one really comes out bright and it looks great, especially with the contrast of the different shades of blue throughout. Overall, a really cool mace, and I would say I can't wait to duel with these on my Fury Warrior, but you haven't seen the 2-handed sword yet. So next we're going to briefly talk about the new offhand. So this is a little weird. Firstly, I have no idea what this is supposed to be, maybe a lantern or urn, and secondly, I'm not really the biggest fan of this. Although that being said, I do like the detail on the metal chain. Not much else to say about it really. I think maybe with the right one-hander and transmog this could potentially look good, but on its own I find it a little strange. But let's be honest, what else could they do for the Alliance offhand? In fact, I believe the vanilla offhand was actually just a book, so you don't really have much choice really. Next up is the polearm. Now ever since vanilla I have loved the Grand Marshal's glaive. Just look at it, it was truly before its time. So this new one looks like this. Not exactly the same, but it still looks really cool. Starting down the end with this dangling ribbon, which changes colours with each 3 of the colour variants. The handle reuses a similar design seen in the one-handers like the dagger, and the tip of the polearm looks great as well, looking very similar to the spike that was used on the bow. The best bit for me is this axe looking thing. At first, I thought it was just made of stone and just a mess of pattern, but if you look closely you can actually see that there's a griffin on there, perfectly shaped into the axe, with the tail coming out the bottom and wrapping itself around the pole itself. I'm a huge fan of this weapon and I think it just looks so menacing. The thing has spikes on each end of it for goodness sake, and that's how you make an effective weapon to kill the horde with. So next up, not technically a weapon, but I would imagine you get it from the same source. I'm talking of course about the Alliance shields. So we've been blessed with 2 of these bad boys, so let's check them out. So this is the first design. The vibe I actually got from this is that of the Trial of Crusader raid from Wrath, especially this colour. I think it would work nicely with the tier sets from that raid. I do like the giant gem in the middle and the wings coming off of the sides. Again, a design we've seen throughout most of these items. So the next shield looks like this, a much different design to the first, and honestly I prefer it massively over the last one. It features a lion head and ribbons hanging down from each side. This is one of the few designs that features that weird pink colour, and it does look kinda odd. I actually think the white and bronze one looks the best out of these colours. Overall, 2 great shields, and it'll be interesting to see the differences between them in stats. So our next one is a big one, the staff, and it does not disappoint. The gold and blue version looks incredible, so let's break this down. At the end of the staff you have some like metal claw looking thing with a blue gem. Going up the handle, it has a similar design with what we've seen previously, but it has a specific area to hold this thing. At the top of the hilt there's a low res lion face and a metallic looking ribbon wrapping itself over the top of the hilt. The end of the staff is where it really comes to life though. A massive blue shining orb at the end, with 2 massive wing shapes coming out of each side covered in metal spikes. The design on the wings looks cool as well, and it really brings the whole thing to life. I love the look of this thing and I can't wait to see what it's going to look like paired up with the tier 3 cloth armor. I think it's going to be a match made in heaven for cloth users, but I couldn't really see like a druid or something like that using it. Staying on casters, let's briefly mention the wand that was data mined. It's pretty interesting to see a wand on this list to be honest, as in Mist they were changed from a ranged weapon to a main hand. It'll be interesting to see whether or not Blizzard are planning a big return for the wands in Battle for Azeroth, or they just added this for the sake of adding it. Either way, it's not the worst design in the world, taking a lot of inspiration from the dagger, and it looks nice in all 3 colours. As I said though, this will be more interesting once the stats come to light, and we can see whether or not it'll be relevant in Battle for Azeroth. Our penultimate weapon we're going to check out is the One-Handed Sword, and it looks like this. So firstly, I love how high res this sword is. The details on the lion face on the hilt are incredible. This design is great and it works perfectly in all 3 colours. The area just above the hilt is pretty interesting and I'm not really sure what's going on there, but I kinda like it. The blade itself is nice and long, but not long enough to look silly when being used by a rogue for example. Overall, a really nice sword, and honestly it's about time the Alliance got a decent one-handed sword, as the vanilla sword was always a little bit lackluster in my opinion, and it's nice to finally have some indications on this that it's Alliance, as the previous one just looked a bit bland and didn't have anything Alliance specific on it. And finally, the Two-Handed Sword. As a Fury Warrior, this piqued my interest. One of my favourite items in the game is the Grand Marshal's Claymore. I think this does make for a worthy evolution of that mighty sword. This thing is massive, and when you see it in game it just looks like it hurts. With a massive griffin face on the top of the hilt, with massive wings coming out of the sides, this thing screams Alliance pride. The blade on this thing is huge, and it even features a massive gem on the top of the sword to add that extra level of uniqueness. In my opinion, this is the best two-hander they've made so far out of these Warfront weapons, but we're still waiting on the axe to be added, so it's all to play for the Alliance. So that's pretty much it so far for the Alliance weapons. As I said at the start, there are plenty more to be added. Comparing it to the Horde right now, they currently have models for axes and even Demon Hunter glaives, so I can't wait to see the Alliance version of those. So let me know down in the comment section below what your thoughts are on these weapons and which one is your favourite. I'd love to know what you guys think. The next video I'll be making will be covering all the Horde weapons that are currently available, so don't forget to subscribe with notifications on to be one of the first to see that video when it drops, hopefully on Thursday. So before I go, I'd like to give a massive shout out to my amazing patrons and YouTube sponsors. You guys are awesome. If you'd like to support the channel in that way, links are down below. So leave a like on this video if you liked it guys, and subscribe if you haven't. I also have a partner Discord channel with over 3,000 members. Link is in the description. And with that, I'll see you next time.